Hola clase. So in this video, we're going to learn a brand new topic, and it's called the subjunctive. You may have heard about the subjunctive before. Maybe when you heard about the subjunctive, it sounded big and scary and complex, and you were just glad you were far away from that day. I'm not sure what you thought. Or maybe right now is the first time that you're hearing about the subjunctive. But anyway, the subjunctive is not hard. It's actually pretty easy, and it allows you to say a lot more things with very little new things learned. So that's really cool. It'll feel like you put in a little additional effort, but you were able to say a lot more. So this is when stuff starts getting real. Okay, so the first thing to know about the subjunctive is that it is not a tense. Tense means time. So the present tense, the past tense, the future tense. So when we talk about tenses, we're talking about time. And the subjunctive is not a tense. Now, it's a tense in that it's a set of endings to use, and there's rules about when to use it. So it's like, if you think that's what a tense is, then sure, it's a tense. But technically, a tense has to do with time, and we're talking about past, present, and future. So instead of being a tense, what the subjunctive is it's a mood. And to best explain what the difference is between a tense and a mood, I think it's best if we go back to the very first tense we ever learned, the present, and if we just give that a new name. So the present tense, it actually has a more technical name, and I want to tell you what that is, and that'll help illustrate what the difference is between a tense and a mood. So the present tense is really called the present indicative. The present indicative. And that's because the present tense is used to indicate things. So if I say, yo como cereal todas las mañanas, I eat cereal every morning. I'm indicating that I eat cereal every morning. So see why it's called the indicative, the present indicative? Okay. I could also indicate in the future. I could say, yo voy a comer cereal esta mañana. I'm going to eat cereal. It's in the future. I've changed my tense, but I'm still indicating. Or I could indicate in the past. Yo comí cereal esta mañana. I'm indicating to you that I ate cereal this morning. But I can talk about eating cereal every day or eating cereal this morning or going to eat cereal. I can talk about those different tenses without indicating that I did them or that I'm going to do it. Okay, and that is what a mood is. And so it'll make a little bit more sense when we start seeing some sentences that use the subjunctive. Okay. This is interesting, we have a subjunctive in English. Ooh, bet you didn't know that. And so here I'll show you the difference between an indicative sentence and a subjunctive sentence. Here's an indicative sentence. You are here at 4 o'clock. You are. If I asked you to conjugate the verb be in English, I am, you are, he is, I bet you could do it, right? And you would pair you with are because you know are is the you form of the verb. But I'm going to keep it the present tense, okay? I'm going to keep it you, keep the form you, but watch the verb change. It is important that you be here at 4 o'clock. We don't say it is important that you are here at 4 o'clock. I mean, some people might say that, but it's wrong. Okay, it is important that you be here at 4 o'clock. Be, actually, is the correct form for you in the subjunctive in English. So there is a subjunctive in Spanish as well. Now, in English, the subjunctive is kind of identical to the infinitive, but that's just how English works. That doesn't mean it's the same in Spanish. Okay, so here it says there's a difference between indicating that something happens and wishing, hoping, doubting, being happy that, recommending that something happens. So if I'm recommending that something happen, I'm not indicating that it happens. I'm just recommending that it happen, right? And that's the subjunctive mood. I could say my homework's done, but I could say I'm happy that my homework's done. If I say my homework's done, I'm indicating that my homework's done. If I'm saying I'm happy that my homework's done, well, then I'm using a subjunctive. Okay, and so first I'm going to show you what the subjunctive endings are, and then I'm going to show you how to form a subjunctive sentence. And then finally, I have an acronym to give you. Okay, so here's how the subjunctive is formed. First with AR verbs. So here we have the present indicative. So hablo, hablas, habla, hablamos, habláis, hablan. O, as, a, amos, ais, an. Right? So what we're going to do is we're going to treat AR verbs like ER verbs, and we're going to treat both ER and IR verbs like AR verbs. So nothing gets treated like an IR verb. ER and IR is kind of joined together, and then they get treated like AR verbs, and then AR gets treated like ER. Okay? So in the present subjunctive, we're going to do hable, hables, hable, hablemos, habléis, hablen. And so notice that in the subjunctive, in the present subjunctive, the yo form and the LA form are the same. Now we've seen that in other tenses too, right? In the imperfect, that's the case, right? With the ias and the abas. So that'll be the case in other tenses too, in other forms of the subjunctive, because there's a past subjunctive too. Okay. Now here's an IR verb. Escribo, escribes, escribe, just conjugated in the present indicative, which just, I know that's a big fancy term, but just remember that's the present tense, right? We just gave it a new fancier name now. Escribimos, escribís, escriben. And so we're going to treat it like an AR verb. Escriba, escribas, escriba, escribamos, escribáis, escriban. So AR verbs become like ER. ER and IR verbs become like AR. And so here are some examples of sentences. And I want to kind of give you the anatomy of a sentence in the subjunctive, okay? Actually, I'm going to subjunctify a sentence here. So I'm over here, I have on the left, I have just a regular old present tense, present indicative sentence. I'm indicating that Miguel habla mucho. And so I conjugate it in the present indicative because I'm indicating Miguel habla mucho. He talks a lot. I'm indicating that he talks a lot. But I might want to say something about Miguel's talking a lot. That's not just indicating that he's talking a lot, right? Espero que Miguel no hable mucho. Espero que means I hope that. Espero que Miguel no hable mucho. So I'm not just indicating that he talks a lot. I'm saying I hope that Miguel doesn't talk a lot. Okay? So what every subjunctive sentence has is something called a trigger, which we're going to underline. Okay? So espero que is my trigger. Typically, a trigger is something that triggers the subjunctive, right? It triggers something in the rest of the verb in the rest of the sentence to be in the subjunctive. So there's our verb in the rest of the sentence, but espero is a verb too, right? It means I hope. And so typically the verb in the trigger is just a regular old present tense verb, right? Espero que Miguel no hable mucho. Okay, and so it's going to trigger the rest of the verb in somewhere in the rest of the sentence to be subjunctive. Let's take a look at this one. Mis padres son estrictos. I'm indicating that they are strict. Mis padres son estrictos. No quiero que mis padres sean estrictos. I don't want that my parents be strict. That's the way to say I don't want my parents to be strict. Okay? No quiero que mis padres sean estrictos. And that's how you conjugate the verb ser. It's the verb ser is irregular in the subjunctive. Don't worry about that. We'll get to irregulars when we get to them, but let's just get comfortable with the regular ones first. Okay. Yo trabajo mucho. I'm indicating that I work a lot. Ella duda que yo trabaje mucho. She doubts that I work a lot. Él se cepilla los dientes. So he brushes himself the teeth. So here we can use reflexive verbs in the subjunctive as well. So it works the same way. You're just changing the way you conjugate the verb, but you still have the say and you bring it out in you can have the may, te, and lay and all that, or may, te, say, and all of those things. So él se cepilla los dientes. Dudo que, I doubt that. Dudo que él se cepille los dientes. I doubt that he brushes his teeth. Tú nunca escuchas. You never listen. Quiero que tú me escuches. I want you to listen to me. I want that you listen to me. Quiero que tú me escuches. So hopefully we can see a pattern there. Now you might be thinking, how do I know what things count as triggers and what things don't? Well, there is an acronym that I'm going to give you. The acronym is WEIRDOS. But first, before doing the acronym, I want you to notice too that a lot of times there's a K in these triggers, and that's the last word of the trigger. And K means that. So no quiero que, ella duda que, she doubts that. Dudo que, I doubt that. So obviously doubting is something that triggers the subjunctive, right? Whether it's she's doubting or I doubt, doubting that something happens is a trigger to the subjunctive. Quiero que, wanting something to happen, is a trigger to the subjunctive. Hoping that something happen is a trigger to the subjunctive. So instead of just trying to memorize all these, let me give you the acronym now, okay? So here is the acronym. So the W stands for wish, want, or desire. So yo quiero que, yo deseo que, I desire that something happen. So yo espero que, I hope that. So those are all verbs that would fall under this W category, wish, want, desire, or any other word that is similar, okay? So the next one, the E, is for emotion. So you're copying all of these down. And I'm going to I'll give an example for each one. Okay. Yo quiero que, and even if you say yo no quiero que something happens, it's the same thing. Yo no quiero que tú me grites. So the verb gritar is the verb to yell, AR verb, grites. Yo no quiero que tú me grites. Okay, the next one is emotion. So if you're not just indicating that something happens, but if you're indicating an emotion that it happened, like I'm happy that, or he's sad that, or I'm disappointed that, those are all something that fall under the E of weirdos. So you might say estoy, because when we talk about emotions, we use the verb estar, right? Estoy triste que mi perro esté muerto. So normally if I was just indicating that my dog is dead, I'd say mi perro está muerto. I would conjugate the verb estar like normal. Estoy triste que mi perro esté muerto. Okay. The I stands for impersonal expression. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, these first two so far, and then the rest of them are going to be personal ones. This one's going to be the ones that's impersonal. What do I mean by personal? In the trigger, let me get into the habit here of underlining my triggers. There's always been a verb conjugated for some person. Or there's always been a person involved. I'm not wanting. I'm sad that. So there's been a person involved. These triggers are not going to really involve people. they're going to start with S a lot. So like es increíble, it's incredible, que. It's incredible that ella tenga 10 años. Okay, so it's incredible or it's unbelievable that she is 10 years old, that she has 10 years. Oh, you know what? That one maybe wasn't a great example either because there's tenga. That's another irregular verb. But don't worry about that. Don't worry how we got tenga. Not yet, anyways. Okay. Okay, the R stands for request. Or recommendation. So if I request that something happen, or if I recommend that something happen, that's what this one is about. So recomendar is the verb to recommend. It's a stem changing verb. So it's not just recommend, it's recomiendo que. Recomiendo que, and that's our trigger. Let me underline our trigger here. Es increíble que. Recomiendo que tú comas. No. Que tú abraces. That Z would become a C in the subjunctive. Un cacto. Recomiendo que tú abraces un cacto. All right, the next letter is D for doubt. There we go. Doubt. And so if you doubt that something happens, then you're going to put that thing in the subjunctive. Now, here's the thing. If you don't doubt, if you're certain that something happens, you actually don't put it in the subjunctive. You just indicate it because you're certain that it happens. For example, if you were to say no dudo que, I don't doubt that, you're actually not going to put your next verb in the subjunctive. You're just going to keep it present tense, present indicative. But if you say dudo que, I do doubt that, then it's going to be in the subjunctive. Also, if you say I'm certain that, or I'm sure that, estoy seguro que, that's not going to be a subjunctive trigger. But if you say no estoy seguro, so if you were to say no estoy seguro de que something, then that would be a subjunctive trigger. So if there's any sort of doubt being expressed in the first part of the sentence, then it is a subjunctive trigger. So the verb to doubt is dudar. Dudar. So dudo que would be I doubt. Dudo que él se duche. Now, se ducha would be he showers. I'm doubting it, so I'm going to say duche todos los días. Dudo que él se duche todos los días. Okay, the next one is a fun one. Ojalá. Okay, ojalá is a word in Spanish which kind of means hopefully. It actually comes from the 700 or so years that the Moors, Muslim people, ruled Spain, and so there's a lot of Spanish influence on food and culture and language, even, like ojalá. So this word came from those times. It wasn't in Spanish before the Moors invaded in 711, and they were there all the way till 1492. And so ojalá means hopefully. And actually, if you listen to the word ojalá, you hear the word Allah in it, which is God in Arabic. So ojalá. And here's the fun thing about this. You can just say ojalá que. It's not a verb, so there's no ojalar. Okay, no ojalo, ojalas, ojalá. It's not a verb. It's just a word all by itself. Ojalá. So ojalá que doesn't mean I hope that. It doesn't mean you hope that. It's just kind of like hopefully that, hopefully something. So don't worry about conjugating it. That's just how it is. Ojalá que is the trigger. But actually, the K is optional. So that's the thing about that. The K is optional. You could just say ojalá, then your verb in subjunctive. Okay, so, but I think more often you would see the K or hear the K. Okay, so now if I'm saying it's raining, I would say llueve. Oops. Llueve. Because the verb is llover, and it's a stem changer. So the O changes to UE, so it's llueve. But I'm going to make it llueva. So ojalá que llueva. I hope that it rains. Or nevar is nieva. So ojalá que nieve, which means I hope that it snows. Ojalá que nieve. Now, nieve is actually the noun snow, like the thing, but nieve is the subjunctive of it snows. Nieva would be the present indicative because it's nevar. It's an AR verb. All right, and then last letter, speculative. Or speculation, I guess we can say speculation. You know what I'm going to do? I just realized I'm going to delete that and just make it weirdo, okay? Because I have this category down here, which we'll do another day, called non-weirdo triggers. So there's just a few extra, which is just, we'll practice the weirdo triggers first, and they kind of get wrapped up into those non-weirdo triggers. There's only a few, but they're very useful. And so, so we're just going to make it weirdo. All right. And that is the end of this lesson, but let me give you a homework assignment first, okay? Just to practice what we just did, all right? Now, for each letter of weirdo, there are several verbs. It's not like, or for most letters of weirdo, there are several verbs. There's a verb to wish, esperar, desear, querer, okay? So there's multiple verbs to choose from for each category. Emotion, well, probably just the verb estar. Then there's various emotions that you can use, right? So conjugate that verb estar in the present tense, whatever way you need to for the trigger, okay? Impersonal expressions, I guess there's also only one verb. It's really just S, right? Different adjectives here that you can use. Request or recommendation, recomendar, or to suggest, I guess sugerir is the verb to suggest. And then ojalá is not even a verb. And then doubt, you could talk about being certain, or you could talk about doubting. So there's different verbs, I guess, for some of these is what I'm trying to say. So part of what we're doing as we practice the subjunctive is practicing verbs, using them in with the opposite kind of ending. And we're also going to practice these trigger verbs. But when we practice those, we're not practicing those in the subjunctive. We're just practicing those in the regular old present indicative that we've learned first. And so this is your homework. So I'm just going to give you a few sentences. And I just want you to, they're going to be short, tiny, and I want you to subjunctify them by adding a trigger and then changing how the verb is conjugated from the present indicative to the subjunctive. So just like we did here, Miguel habla mucho. I was still talking about Miguel talking a lot, but now I added a trigger, and I want you to underline it when you write your subjunctified sentence. So you're just going to make sure you have the trigger, that it's a real good, valid trigger, and that you change the verb. Pretty simple. So here are your sentences. Clarita está en casa. Okay, second one. María y Bebé Tiburón escuchan música. So you're going to say something about Maria and Bebé Tiburón that listening to music. Maybe you hope that they listen to music and you want to use that ojalá one. Maybe you wish that they would listen to music. Maybe you're happy or a certain emotion that they listen to music. Maybe you want to say it's incredible or it's ridiculous or whatever you know how to say. Okay. Maybe you want to request or recommend that they listen to music. So it's up to you. I want you to use a variety of different weirdo triggers, and that is your homework. You're just going to rewrite the original sentences here with an arrow subjunctifying them, or you could write them underneath. All right, that is your homework.